What's going on, guys? Alex here with 814 EDC, and today I'm ready to do my full review on the Kizer Mini Mystic. So this is, of course, in the Lefty passaround group, and it is part of a Kizer package, including the Mini Mystic and the Feeweed, which you guys will probably see in tomorrow's video after this one. You guys can see no thumb suds on this, so I have a little short video to talk about. Pretty disappointed, honestly, with Kizer, and you know, this knife in general had so much going for it, in my opinion, when it came to my own personal thoughts on the knife, but unfortunately I was not able to carry it. So if you guys are interested in what I have to say about that, definitely don't miss tomorrow's video. But here we are talking about the Kizer Mini Mystic. And before we jump into the video, I do apologize if you guys have caught any of this week's videos. I am a little bit under the weather, so I apologize. My voice is a little bit gravelly and, you know, kind of sicky. And also, I hope everything looks okay and sounds okay. I'm still kind of, you know, getting used to positioning my phone and my arm, you know, okay here with the mat and everything like that. It's kind of thrown me for a loop because you guys can see on my desk I have these lines, my finger down here, and it's throwing me, like, my OCD is kind of throwing me off because my mat isn't parallel with the lines, it's parallel with the phone. So if it looks okay, you know, let me know down below, drop a comment. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, you know, with you know, constructive criticism, you know, complaints, even all the good things. So let me know, as always. Quick swig of water, and yeah, we're going to talk about the Mini Mystic. This is a Paul Munko design that is harkening from his full-size Mystic designs. I believe it came out last year, I think. It was a pretty popular model within, you know, for Kizer. Paul has done a few other ones. I think he has some with Beztech now, and a few other ones floating out there. He has a very, you know, specific design language. You know, it's not necessarily my cup of tea with stuff that I want to add to my collection, but I can really appreciate, you know, the thought process behind it, for sure. Again, just not, you know, not necessarily for me, but it's one of those knives that I have in on the channel quite often, that I can just appreciate for, you know, what it is and, you know, the design behind it. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the review, starting off with materials. There are 3 specific versions of the Mini Mystic. I have, of course, the white acrylic and aluminum handled one. So you guys can see here, it's basically PPI or Ultim, but just clear. Like a clear plastic. And then down here you have a nice sort of blasted aluminum with a little bit of a design milling in there. And I believe up here on the pivot collar is also a strip of aluminum, or if it's not, it's just G10 to match the aluminum, which is nice. This is rocking the clutch lock system from Kizer, which is their crossbar lock system. You have a loop over style deep carry pocket lip that is reversible lefty or righty, which is kind of given when it comes to crossbar lock systems. You have a Nitro V steel Mini Mystic, and there is Munko knives, if that'll catch. You have a very interesting blade shape. You have sort of a harpoon clip point. You have a, you know, nice poon area up here, but then it ends with a clip point. It's a pretty thin blade. Very, you know, very different, but very usable at the same time. Of course, it is a polished blade. As for internal milling, there looks to be 4 pockets on both sides, so you have skeletonized liners, making this very lightweight, you know, in addition to the aluminum and the Ultim, or excuse me, the white acrylic. I'm so used to saying Ultim. Some quick specs for you guys here. 1 second while my computer is loading. So we have an overall length of tip, or from tip to butt, excuse me. It's been a little while since I've done a full review, so I apologize, guys. Of 7.58 inches. You have a blade length of 3.2 inches, a blade thickness of 0.12. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. I have the windows open in my apartment because it's we have our sliding door open and we have our windows open because it's so nice today, so we're getting some fresh air in. But sometimes our bedroom door, it's like a wind tunnel, so it just slams shut. I'm sure it probably freaked my dog out. I think she was lying in our bed. What was I gonna say? I think I lost my train of thought. But the blade is being considered a clip point and then it weighs 2.98 ounces, so sub 3 ounces, which is very, very nice considering you have almost a 3¼ inch blade. I will leave a link to White Mountain Knives down below, where I found all 3 of the variations on sale if you guys are interested. So the other 2 variations besides this one, you have a, let's see here, a yellow aluminum. Actually, yeah, the bolster is aluminum on this one, and then burlap micarta. And then you have a, looks like a stone washed, and then all the hardware is black. And then you have a PVD coated blade with normal Ultim, and then you have burlap as well. So a couple different burlap micarta options, and then you have this one. This is probably my favorite just because it's kind of monotone and goes with everything. But as far as the Mini Mystic is concerned, with a score on materials, 5 out of 5. Kizer does really well with their Nitro V. I'm a big fan of aluminum. You know, Ultim clear PPI or PEI or acrylic is what they're calling this, I guess, technically. No issues whatsoever there. Good deep carry clip, clutch lock system, all the things you want in a budget knife. So next we're going to move on to aesthetic. And this is kind of something, you know, where I struggle a little bit because I try to be, you know, transparent, and I try to look at it, you know, objectively from not just my 100% my point of view, but I try to look at it from, you know, the designer's perspective. And like I said earlier in the video, you know, this knife is just not something that I would actively go out of my way to add to the collection based off of looks alone. Do I think it's ugly? Excuse me. Absolutely not. I think it's a fine looking knife. I just don't think it's fantastic, 100%, you know, worthy of a 5 out of 5. The blade shape is, again, very unique. Point with a poon up there. The handle, you know, it's simple, but it's also like different in its own way. It's kind of the best way I can describe it. And when it comes to aesthetic, I'm gonna go 4.5. I'm gonna go 4.25. I started implementing kind of the quartered scores in my last couple of reviews I've done. And I mean, it's still a good looking knife. And you guys know how, you know, where I'm coming from with this, to where it's not a knife that you would add to your collection. And that's kind of the defense I use for it all the time. It's not a knife that you would add to your collection, but it's still a good looking knife in its own right. And you still have to be respectful of that. So I think a 4.25 is fair on aesthetic. Next, we're going to be moving on to the action section of the review. And of course, it has the clutch lock from Kizer. And if you guys can see through that white acrylic, you guys can see that it is not on the strongest detent hole. There is one more that it could slide to. And if this were my own knife and I would buy this for myself, I would definitely have it on the strongest detent hole. However, I did not really feel like it was necessary for me to strip this down, you know, take it apart just to move that. You know, is it probably a lot easier than I, you know, am making it out to be? Absolutely, but I just didn't really want to do the hassle of it, if I'm being honest with you guys. The detent on this one is still good enough for me, but I would, you know, disclaimer, I would prefer to have it on the strongest hole, but that's just kind of me being lazy, I guess you could say. You have dual thumb studs here. Thumb flick works great. I mean, if you guys have handled a clutch lock from Kizer, you pretty much know how it feels. If you haven't handled a clutch lock from Kizer, what are you doing? They really have, you know, in my opinion, probably the best, if not, you know, top 2, top 3 at least, access lock system on the market, just due to the, you know, customizable detent system they have on here. And they have so many new models out, or they have had so many models out over the, what, year and a half, probably 2 years since they implemented this. With the thumb flick, works great. Flicks open very nicely. Middle finger flick. The thumb studs have, you know, our typical Kizer studs. Reverse flick goes out nicely. Then, of course, on the close, well, actually, you can do a slow roll too, which is decent with this knife. And then on the close, you guys can see the crossbar locks just stick out just enough. Pull it, glides home. Pull it, glides home. You can even do it with just your thumb. You guys can see here. Very, very nice. no blade play whatsoever, so locked up really nice and tight. You know, like I said, I think the clutch lock system is fantastic. I really like that Kizer implemented that a couple years ago and really, you know, took a lock system, you know, from Benchmade with the Axis lock and improved it in a lot of different ways. Because honestly, you know, Benchmade's a great company. They catch a lot of flack for a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's, you know, very deserved. But, you know, the Axis lock was always kind of mushy, and this one really made it, you know, this one made the detent feel crisper, less mushiness, and it made the actions feel a lot better on a lot of their models. So when it comes to the score, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5. I think I will always, I don't want to say always, but almost always give a clutch lock knife a 5 out of 5 on the action, just because it's really, you know, that good. So next up is acoustics. Sorry about that, guys. Back to the door situation with our bedroom. There's a slight gap and it was moving back and forth, and couldn't tell if it was my dog or not, so I went and checked it out, got that all situated. But I think we were talking about acoustics, and I think I just flicked it a lot for you guys, so I'm not going to flick it a lot anymore. But honestly, like, it's, you know, clutch locks. I just lied. I did flick it a few more times for you guys. Clutch locks are, you know, I feel like they're not the best sounding knife in general. I'm here a couple more times. Yeah, I'm gonna go 3.5. You guys know it's kind of my standard score for acoustics, and it's honestly not really showing me too much outside of the basics to, you know, improve that score by, you know, any stretch of the imagination. And you guys know, I say it in almost every review video, excuse me. If there's one thing to take with like the utmost grain of salt from my review videos, it is the acoustics section. It's just how I roll. You know, not everyone really cares about acoustics, and I don't necessarily in the grand scheme of things, but I like to talk about it for you guys. So we'll go 3.5 on the acoustics and move on to ergos. Ergos are fantastic on this knife. I mean, it's a pretty slim and thin handle ratio, and you have, you know, no sharp edges. It's all, you know, just proud or shadow box liners. The aluminum has a little bit of sort of a blasted feel to it, and, you know, these marks and these lines are ingrained into the scales, obviously, but they are not deep enough to really, you know, your fingers just kind of slide over them. Milling is the word I was looking for. Then, of course, up here you do have a little bit of micro milling as well on the white acrylic, but what, you know, it's a pretty, I don't want to say slippery handle material, but it's nothing really to write home about when you go to grab onto the knife. But just due to the nice, you know, presentation and way the scales are designed and the knife is designed, I can easily get all 4 fingers in this knife very, very comfortably. You do have a small mounting jimping right here on the thumb ramp, and your thumb can also land right out here into the poon area, which is sort of my preferred landing spot if you're doing push cuts. It gives you really nice control and a little bit of extra power for that. Very nice. You do have a choil up here as well. You do have to be careful though, because you are pretty darn close to the blade. So if you have any, you know, I would say I have large size hands. So if you have large size or above hands, you would probably not be able to use it, because my finger is on the blade right there, you guys can see. But it is usable. However, there's no complaints at all. The pot clip is not a hot spot in the slightest, which is very, very nice. Just kind of melts into the hand. And this grip right here is very, very good for a lot of different cutting methods. So I have, again, no complaints with the ergos in the knife. So for that, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. And we're going to move on to carry, which I'm already going to jot down as a 5 out of 5, because get the nice loop over style deep carry clip that Kizer does on a lot of their models. It would have been nice to see them, you know, mill out a little bit of space to put this clip down into the scales, but, you know, not the end of the world on a budget knife. It's lightweight. It's sub 3 ounces. Sits down in your pocket. You have no flipper tab, no jimping, anything like that that can possibly, catch on your hand as you're down underneath it, going to get something such as change, chapstick, AirPods, things of that nature. Lefty or righty carry, which is also very sort of, a certainty when you have a crossbar lock knife. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty small, pretty, you can almost disappear into my fist. So it's lightweight, of course. I've only carried this in shorts. Actually, I did carry it in jeans one time, I think, for a few hours. No issue whatsoever, as you figured. So easy 5 out of 5 when it comes to the carry. And that leads me to my final category of the review, that is price point / value / would I recommend this knife. So the price point on the Kizer Knives Mini Mystic is $75.95. If you use White Mountain Knives, you can use someone's code like Lefty's, Lefty10, or basically your favorite knife content creator. Speaking of that, I really should get a White Mountain Knives code because I pretty much plug it whenever I can. But $76 for this, I think that's fair. I mean, you're getting aluminum scales / white acrylic. Nitro V is a fantastic budget steel. It's probably my second favorite budget steel after 14C. You're getting the design of, Paul Munko, who is kind of has a little bit of a cult following, I would say, in the EDC realm. He's a very popular guy. Has, his designs do very, very well as far as I know. You're getting the Kizer clutch lock system, which is great. Loop over style, deep carry clip, great carryability, great ergos. The only thing that this was really lacking is the acoustics, which again, take that with the utmost grain of salt. And, whether or not you like the knife. So I will, or like the way the knife looks, I guess is what I need to say. So I will say this, if you guys are a fan of Munko's designs, then absolutely you're going to love this knife. I can recommend it to you. It's a great knife. It's a great addition to Kizer's catalog. I know this one's been very, very popular amongst, guys in the YouTube chat, on Instagram and things like that. The yellow aluminum and burlap micarta one is also $76, and then the Altum and burlap is $80, which a few dollars upcharge, not bad at all. Use someone's code, you can get that down probably into the 60s. So I think it's a great value. I mean, I think anything that Kizer produces, I'm a big fan of Kizer in general, except for maybe this knife, which we'll talk about in a next video. I almost said previous video. I think anything Kizer makes, sub. How do I want to say this? I think everything that Kizer makes is a good value, but I think everything that Kizer makes sub $100 is a fantastic value. So I have no complaints in the slightest there. Great value. Whenever I say great value, I always think of Walmart. Great value, great price point. Can absolutely recommend it to you guys. So we're going to give that a 5 out of 5. And then let me do my math skills real quick here. Alrighty guys, I have the Kizer Knives Mini Mystic coming in with a score of 32.75, which just lands it in the fantastic category, and I think that's a great landing spot for it. Again, if this was my cup of tea with a design, I think this would be more of a perfect home run for me. Regardless, I still think it scored pretty well. I enjoyed the knife. It's always such a really fun experience to check out knives that I would never go out of my way to purchase, and I still get to come in here, check them out for you guys, spend time with them, and learn to, appreciate them for what they are. And I think that was a good case with the Kizer Knives Mini Mystic. But leave a comment down below. Did any of you guys pick up the Mini Mystic when it dropped? If you did, which variation did you get? Do you guys have maybe the full-size Mystic or any other of Munko's designs? As always, let me know down below. But I'm going to wrap this up now, so thank you guys again so much for watching. This was my full review of the Kizer Knives Mini Mystic. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your morning, evening, night, day, whenever you're watching this. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.